Welcome back. My next guest is Joe Denner. He's the president of Alliant Leadership. Welcome to Schoolscape, Joe.
It's great to be here, Jay. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here today because I heard you when you did a small presentation to my Kiwanis group. And I was so impressed with you talking about leadership, and I started thinking about schools and how we teach kids to be self-reliant and we teach them good educational skills, but somehow that just never always transfers over to the real world. So I wanted you to share some of your insight with us, and I guess my first question is, what really is leadership?
That is a great question, because I think many times when people hear about leadership, the first thing they think of is somebody who's in charge or somebody who's the boss. And really, what leadership is mostly about is influence. It's really about influencing people to go in a particular direction. Many times you've heard managers are people that make people do things. Leaders are people that get people to want to do things. And so really leadership is all about influencing people to go in a particular direction or to accomplish a particular task.
That's good. Now, we have leaders, but lots of times it seems that, you're right, they turn more into managers or people making people do things. They kind of get off the track of leading. Why does that happen?
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons people get off the track is because they are trying to be everything to everyone. And we really have an obsession to some degree in our culture with being this well-rounded leader. And I know that when I was a young leader, I tried to mimic certain leaders that I saw who were very influential and very effective. And one of the things I think that happens is we get off the track of being true to ourselves and we become inauthentic as leaders. We try to become something that we're not. And I think that's the biggest area where people get off track, is trying to become something they're not rather than remaining true to who they are.
So would that be the bottom line of being effective leadership, is knowing who you are and where your strengths are?
It's certainly part of it, because when we get off the track and we become disingenuous leaders, then we really violate one of the most important parts of leadership, and that is building genuine trust with those who are following. And so the bottom line of effective leadership is building those relationships of trust with the people that are following us. I found that people who trust me will follow me even if they're not sure of where we're going. But if they don't trust me, regardless of where they think we're going or how I'm leading them, there's always a hesitation to follow, and that hinders productivity, and it hinders really our effectiveness to operate together as a team.
I guess that leads me to a different question. How do you get people to trust you?
Well, I think you get people to trust you by being trustworthy and trusting them. There's a thing called the cycle of trust, where when I trust you, then you tend to trust me. But even if I don't trust you, even if I don't say that out loud, I tend to communicate that in ways that I don't really realize. And so we begin a cycle of mistrust. But when I trust and I behave in a manner that is trustworthy, I think that goes a long way. And I think inviting people into conversations where they get an opportunity to be heard also helps them feel like they are trusted, and that then gives them an opportunity to give trust.
I like that, giving them an opportunity to be heard, because too often you have conversations and it's like two one-sided conversations.
Yeah.
They have nothing to do with each other. So if someone is trying to get into leadership, their budding aspirations, what would you suggest that they do first?
Well, your comment about one-way conversations is the perfect segue to that, because there are three basic skills that I would encourage any budding young leader to try to begin to master. And the first one is active listening. And active listening is something that we've all heard about, but many of us don't really know what it is. And active listening really entails me turning off that conversation that's going on inside of my head while I'm solving your problem for you as you're talking, instead of really listening to you. So the first thing is active listening, which means listening with curiosity and listening with my intuition, and really hearing what you're saying, reading your body language, hearing your tone, your pace, and all those kinds of things, because that's when I really hear what you're saying. The second skill would be asking powerful questions. Many times as leaders, we feel like we're supposed to be the solution providers, and what I've found in my leadership roles is the best way to unleash the power of my team is by asking them powerful questions. So if I listen well and ask really good, well-positioned questions, I'm going to get a great response from the people. It's going to build trust, and we're going to get to where we need to go together. And then the third thing takes all of that and kind of culminates it with guiding people towards well-defined action steps. Because many times we can talk and talk and talk, but we don't get anything done. So the last thing I think leaders need to learn to do in those daily conversations that take place is learning how to listen well, ask good questions, and then finally guide those people towards well-defined action steps.
And then do you work your action steps off of like SMART goals? Is that something that you work with people so they can define where they want to go and how they're going to get there? or-
Yes, SMART goals are a key part as well. That would be maybe in a secondary course, but those first three are the key ones. But helping people define, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals are certainly another skill that needs to be mastered.
Okay, now you mentioned your team. How does someone build a team? I imagine you need a team so you can lead.
Sure.
But how do you go about getting the right people there?
Yeah, I think a big thing, again, is what I talked about earlier about leaders getting off track, trying to be everything to everyone. And what's so important is that leaders focus on their own strengths and not try to be everything to everyone, but focus on their areas of strength. And then the way to build the team is to very intentionally seek out people that complement your strengths. Fill the gaps, if you will. I think so many of us today are terrified of showing any kind of weakness. But what I see is that people appreciate that because they all know they have weaknesses. So if I'm willing to admit that I have shortcomings and I'm willing to bring people on my team who can fill that spot, then I think that's the best way to build a team, because then we get not a well-rounded individual, but we get well-rounded teams. And I think that's the power of good leadership.
Beautiful. Now, how does someone find out what their strengths are?
Well, there's a lot of assessment tools that are out there. My particular favorite is the StrengthsFinder 2.0 that's put out by the Gallup organization. I'm also a certified Myers-Briggs administrator, and I think those two tools really overlay very well together in giving people a very basic idea of what their natural talents and strengths are.
I know you mentioned the book when you came to speak to us, and we got the book, and I was so impressed with it because it said, find your strengths and build on those. And it also has some suggestions for weaknesses, and I think you almost touched on it, but if you know what your weaknesses are, how do you go about improving those?
Yeah, when I talk with leaders about their weaknesses, that's always one of the things that they are wanting to focus on. And I try to get their focus off of their weaknesses and onto their strengths. However, for each of us, there may be certain weaknesses that actually pull us backwards in terms of our performance and on our ability to lead well. And so what I usually work with my clients on then is, how do we neutralize that? How do we get it to a neutral point? Don't try to become something good that you were not designed to become good at, but really get that to a neutral point where it's not pulling your performance backwards, and then jump right back on focusing on your strengths, because that's where your team and your organization and those that are following you are going to benefit most from, is when you focus on your strengths. Beautiful.
Now, we said the name of your company is Alliant Leadership. What does Alliant mean?
Well, Alliant is another way to put ally, which speaks of a partner or someone who comes alongside to help another person. And as an executive coach, that is my passion, is to come alongside and help people achieve their goals and dreams. And the best way to do that is to listen actively, ask powerful questions, and guide them towards well-defined action steps, like we talked about earlier.
I love the way you have it all laid out. That's perfect. If someone wanted to contact you to find out more, either to have you as a coach for them or get some literature from you, how would they contact you?
Two best ways to get a hold of me is by phone. You can call me at 630-868-0888, or you can find me on the web at www.alliantleadership.com, and I would be glad to hear from folks.
Beautiful. I appreciate everything you shared with me. Any other comments that you want to cover?
No, I just want to say what an honor it was to speak at your Kiwanis Club. Had a great time with your club, and have had the privilege to speak at 3 or 4 more clubs since then, and I really just appreciate what you and the Kiwanis organization are doing for kids and for education, so thank you for that.
Well, thanks, and I'm glad that you got to share some leadership skills with our audience, because we have some budding leaders out there, and I think maybe now you've kind of helped them get on the right track, so thank you.
I hope so. Thanks for having me.
All right. We're going to take another short video break now, and when we come back, we have one more exciting guest for you to meet. Let's roll that tape now.